Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for attending this session, which is the Indigenous Protected Areas Australia, the IPA Way, joint presentation with the Southern Tanami IPA. Our presenters today are Ms Chrissy Grant, Mr Rick Taylor, Mr Preston Kelly and Ms Christine Michaels. Today's presentation will be the following format. We're going to have a presentation from the speakers and then it will be open to the floor for questions. If you would like to ask a question, there are microphones situated down at the front of the seating and we'd ask you to come down and ask your question there. Now, because this is a workshop, it would be really good if people could come forward so that there's a bit more engagement with the presenters. So if you'd like to come forward, please do. Thank you. And I just ask you to join me in giving our presenters a very warm welcome. Thank you.
Thank you for that introduction, Jackie. My presentation is about the IPA program and from my experience both as the chair of the IPA subcommittee but more importantly as an Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander person. The IPA is a subcommittee of the Indigenous Advisory Committee to the Federal Minister of Environment, Tony Burke. My presentation will cover Australia's Indigenous Protected Area program and how it works, and looking at the co-managed IPAs. The Indigenous Protected Areas program is a program with the Australia's National Reserve System, and they aim to protect some of Australia's unique environments. And the program is managed by the Australian Federal Government, the Department of Sustainability, Environment, Water, Populations and Communities. An IPA is an area of land or sea voluntarily declared or dedicated by the Indigenous traditional owners and managed primarily for the cultural and biodiversity conservation. IPAs are managed by traditional owners in line with an agreed management plan. And the IPAs are assigned and managed consistently with one or more of the IUCN protected area categories, and the majority of them being under Category 5 and Category 6. The largest IPA is the Southern Tanami, and they're going to be following my presentation, and that's over 10 million hectares, with the smallest being Pulu in the Torres Strait, and that's around 15 hectares. So in the case of IPAs, it's not a case of size. Size certainly doesn't matter. It's every IPA is culturally significant and important for the traditional owners to have it recognised as an Indigenous protected area. So up on the screen you can see from 2007 to 2012 we've really grown. We've doubled the numbers nearly of the IPAs that have been declared. And that covers over 43 million hectares with 92 projects across Australia. So this is a map to visually give you an indication, and this is the very latest map, although the green in the Kimberley probably should be red. There were 4 IPAs that were declared last week. So the green and the red are the IPA areas where they're either declared IPAs already or they're under consultation to become an IPA. And it is entirely up to the community to decide whether or not they want to be an IPA. So we go through a process of consultation and that allows for the Aboriginal landowners to explore the idea of declaring an IPA. And they do that through community meetings and consultations held out on country. There they can also seek advice on legal and other aspects. They can make visits to other IPAs and see from first-hand experience what it means for those communities and how it's working. And the TOs decide then if the IPA fits with their aspirations of managing country. Each IPA establishes a steering committee, and that steering committee works with and takes direction from the traditional owners. Through community meetings and workshops, a plan of management is developed. Funding for IPAs is based on that plan of management. The plans are based on communities' aspirations for caring for their country, focusing on conservation and cultural heritage management. They also help to identify sustainable economic activities, for example, cultural tourism activities. The plans of management, they tell the government what the landowners want to do with their land. They identify the IUCN management categories, partner agencies, employment and training needs, linkages to community or schools programs. It explains what the traditional owners want to do to take care of their lands and their cultural heritage. It explains what economic activities the TOs want on their lands, and that might be something like tourism or contracting land management services. So it shows what the issues are on the land, how the landowners plan to manage, the people who can help them, the employment and training needs, and links to school programs or community projects, such as language projects. The IPA program currently contributes to around 30% of Australia's National Reserve System. The declaration of an Indigenous protected area over Indigenous owned lands results in that land being included as part of the NRS. And while there is security of tenure, security of management for conservation is dependent on continuing financial support to ensure effective management. IPAs are declared in perpetuity. The TOs manage the area in accordance with a plan of management. The declaration or dedication of an IPA is recorded on the Australian Government's protected data set, and that provides for that formal contribution to the National Reserve System. An opportunity for the Aboriginal community to demonstrate their pride in and commitment to the management of their land and sea, and is a true celebration for community. A declaration ceremony or a dedication ceremony can be arranged to celebrate the launch of an IPA. It can involve relevant ministers and other partners to be invited, or it can be a very low-key event just for community. IPA declaration or dedication is a time for the Aboriginal community to show others what is important about their country and culture and how they are looking after it. A chance for the landowners to celebrate and show pride and commitment to the management of their land. The co-managed IPAs support is provided for Aboriginal interests to develop co-management arrangements with state agencies on existing national parks, and the projects need state agency support as well. Funding is mainly for the coordination and negotiation for that to happen. But the co-managed IPAs allow the country to re-emerge as a management unit. It recognises natural and cultural values across the landscape. It integrates coastal land and sea management. It complements existing protected area management and similar concept to the World Heritage across tenures. The management through legal and other effective means. Importantly, IPAs is not a legal protection for land. It doesn't change the land tenure. Aboriginal landowners keep the powers of decision making, and other sustainable land uses can continue if they don't impact on values, that is the living areas, the hunting, the economic activities such as tourism and so forth. So as I said before, the IPAs are a declaration in perpetuity. The legal and other effective means. The legal means are through land ownership, native title, ILUAs, that's the Indigenous land use agreements, and legislated rights and interest, such as, for example, for hunting, fishing, protection of cultural heritage. The other effective means are through those plans of management, partnerships and memorandums of understanding with the key stakeholders, rangers, education and liaison, and research and monitoring. An example of a country-based IPA is a Mandingal Bay Yidinji IPA. And if you can see the diagram, it's got national park, it's got environmental reserve, it's also got a marine park, and there's some native title in there as well. So many tenures, but this has been put up as a co-managed IPA. It's been led by the traditional owners, consistent with the IUCN guidelines. It's a combination of those two things that I just showed you before with the legal and other effective means. It's a commitment of collaboration by IPA partners. It's negotiated by co-governance arrangements and recognised by governments as an IPA. What about sea country IPAs? We had a dedication yesterday afternoon of the first standalone sea country IPA by the Timaru IPA. And so this chart is looking at, under the government marine management, the first two management values is by negotiation. Under the Aboriginal management and sea country, the last three there, recreational fishing, commercial fishing and enforcement, is again by negotiation. But those issues can be negotiated out with those management authorities and the traditional owners, and under a co-management arrangement, the sea country can address all of those issues of management. The social and cultural benefits, for me personally, I think the reason that the IPAs bring about important social and cultural benefits is that the IPAs are about letting traditional owners drive the process, getting people back on country that re-establishes the links between people, culture and country, and re-establish the links between the generations and provide some economic benefits. It is really difficult to evaluate a program like this for the social benefits. The statistics don't show that human cultural side of the program. Caring for country, the continuity of culture, the reconnection of people to country and community, these things that can't be measured, but for me they are the true value of the program for Indigenous people. It provides access to remote IPAs for a lot of people. The traditional owners that have not had access to country before, by whatever means that they can get out there, under an IPA, they go out and they manage that country. So I'll leave you with a couple of shots of my mother's country in the Daintree River at Cape York, and on my father's country of Kubin Village on Moa Island in the Torres Strait. Thank you for listening.
Hello everyone, my name's Rick and I'm the coordinator of the Southern Tanami Indigenous Protected Area. We're here to talk with you about the IPA and how it supports both cultural and biodiversity values in the region. We're number 51 on the map there, which shows all of the protected areas in Australia, plus Indigenous land. The Southern Tanami IPA, as Chrissy has already said, is the largest Indigenous protected area in Australia. It's about 30% larger than Tasmania. And there's a picture from the declaration from last year. I'll start the presentation this afternoon by introducing the Southern Tanami IPA to you. Then I'll briefly discuss with you the IPA development process, and after that I'll hand over to Preston, who will speak about strong local governance in the region, how Yapa make decisions for managing their own country. Then Preston will speak about the key management themes of the IPA, what we're managing for. Christine will then discuss fire management as an example of the strong governance and two-way management in the IPA. And she'll finish by talking about why the IPA project is such a strong project for looking after country. Central Land Council operates across this southern and central region of the Northern Territory, and it provides a lot of support to Yapa to manage their country in this area. For example, the CLC supports a ranger program with more than 80 permanent ranger staff, and you can hear from them later on in the week on Wednesday. In the CLC region, there are also 3 declared IPAs and 1 IPA in development. So there we are, Southern Tanami. There are 3 communities in the IPA, Ngurra, Warllu and Yundamu, and each community has its own management committee and its own ranger group, and they look after their own area of country. You can see them there. Oops. Ngurra, Yundamu and Warllu. The IPA has 2 areas of international conservation significance. Lake Mackay, over to the west, is a really important area for water birds breeding after significant rainfall events. It's over here. And also in the northwest of the IPA, there's a paleo drainage area it's a really significant area for threatened species like mulgara and bilby. The IPA is also an important cultural landscape for Yapa. Traditional owners still retain a very strong connection to country throughout this area. Sorry. The Southern Tanami IPA provides landscape connectivity with other protected areas in the region. Connecting protected areas is important because it allows animals to move about and respond to landscape-scale wildfires and drought and to climate change. There's also a plan for a corridor of connected areas running from the north of Australia, from Arnhem Land, all the way to Port Augusta, a distance of about 3,500 kilometres. And the IPA is an important part of this transcontinental wildlife corridor. There's a history of two-way land management in the IPA region. This goes back to the mid-80s and 90s, when Yapa were working with government scientists from the Northern Territory to protect this little critter here, the critically endangered marla. And this happened in 2 areas in the IPA. A Warlpiri Ranger Group was established by the Central Land Council in 2001, but at that time there wasn't strong governance and there were limitations in funding. This changed in 2007 with the development of the Southern Tanami IPA and strong governance structures to support ranger work in the region. The IPA development process ran for 4 years and it built on all of this earlier work done. On-country action planning was the most important part of this development process. This involved going out on country, often to places that TOs hadn't visited in a very long time, and reconnecting with those places. During the development process, there were 17 trips across the IPA, and each of those was between 4 and 10 days in length. And also, 190 traditional owners were involved in these trips, which represents more than 10% of the traditional owners living within the Southern Tanami IPA region. For example, there was one on-country action planning trip during the IPA development phase that started in Warllu and went all the way to Thompson's Rockhole. The trip covered about 150 kilometres with a lot of driving across trackless country. Oops. All of these photos are from that one country trip from Warllu to Thompson's Rockhole. The photos demonstrate just some of the activities that were carried out by rangers and traditional owners on this trip. For example, up here, rangers and traditional owners undertook tracking every 7 kilometres, looking around for threatened species, and this also was a good opportunity to allow rangers to develop their tracking skills and learn from senior traditional owners. This information was recorded in cyber trackers, that was later updated into a database to be used in future land management for the region. Lots of important cultural sites were visited on the way. Old people spoke about the cultural importance of these sites and also how to look after them. And rangers recorded this information to facilitate the intergenerational transfer of Indigenous ecological knowledge. Over here in this picture. And finally, these trips were critical for planning purposes. Feedback from these trips provided important information to develop the key management themes of the Southern Tanami IPA. Now I'll hand over to Preston to talk with you about the strong local governance in the IPA.
Hello, my name is Preston. I'm a senior ranger at Yundamu. I've been working for the rangers for 4 years now. We have a strong management committee in 3 communities. Warra and Warlpiri. Each management committee look after their part of IPA. Each management committee gets together to make plans about looking after country. Decision for managing the management committee goes into our ranger work for the next year. Management committee have been gone for 5 years. Here, management committee members are doing plan for the work on country. In this photo, elders are talking about work that needs to be done. Once we make the plan, we check with everyone to make sure the plan is okay. Sometimes management committee members splits up into 2, man and woman group, so everyone can get the chance to talk about their idea to manage country. So here are the 3 management committee that I have been speaking about. The NYW are for Warlpiri, Yundamu, and Warra management area. Members of those committee are traditional owners. There. 2 members of each management committee and the senior rangers sits on the IPA council. The council management annually meets, makes all the big decisions for the IPA. I am part of the Yundamu Ranger here. I am also the senior ranger that represents Yundamu on the IPA. We have 4 management teams. the IPA. The first management team is to keep culture strong. We need to go out to country with traditional owners and their family to do this job. We also keep culture strong by looking after important sites like in this photo. We look after country by burning at the right time and right place. We also, we record knowledge so people in the community can look after their country. Stop a new threat to country is the biggest part of IPA and ranger work. Rangers are working to get rid of feral animals like camel and weed like Parkinsonia. In the IPA, we do tracking for threatened species like bilby. We record this information to help look after the country. In the IPA, helps to bring Yapa and Kardiya knowledge. Warlpiri Ranger teach school children about Yapa name for plant animals. Here where rangers are looking after, learning about management. The IPA helps to make Warlpiri book like this, bird book, which used in school and for rangers to look at birds. Traditional owner want to have job for more young people on country. This photo shows some of the way the IPAs support job on country. Traditional owners are working to teach rangers, like in this photo, TOs teaching about plant for important medicine. Here rangers are doing some survey work at the mine site. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Christine. I'm a senior ranger with Ngurra Ranger. I've been doing ranger work for 5 years. Wildfires are a big problem for important sites, plants and animals. This is because Yapa are not walking on country anymore. When Yapa were still walking on country, they used to do burning on country all the time. Little bit here, little bit there. Now Yapa are living in communities, lots of our country has no road, so we cannot get out there to do burning. So now there are big wildfire problem, burning all the country. Big wildfire change where animals and plants are living, and animals that Yapa hunt and plants for medicine. The IPA support Yapa to do burning on country, like in these photos. Five years ago, the Warlu committee was set up to do planning for fire management for all this Aboriginal land. Southern Tanami IPA is part of this area. Next one, sorry. The Warlu community is important because big wildfire are a problem for all the area, so we need to manage fire for this area. Warlu committee members are TOs for this area. The Warlu committee meeting every year and work with Central Land Council and 2 IPAs and Bushfire NT to do planning which area to burn. Here are the Warlu committee members from last year planning meeting. Here we use helicopter to burn those areas that are a long way from a track. We also do ground burning to look after important place and plants and animals, like in these photos where we're looking after wallabies in the rocky area. I will finish by talking about why the IPA is so strong for looking after country. I will talk about these points now. Tour learning is a main point why the IPA is strong. This means learning both sides, Yapa way and Kardiya way. The IPA support all people, teaching young people and rangers how to track. Tour learning is also about Kardiya way. ERTOs and rangers are learning about fire management. This tour learning is still going. Preston spoke about this earlier. Strong local governance makes sure the right people speak up for their country and do planning for all the IPA activity. Here are the elders from Ngurra doing planning for looking after country. And here are the elders from Willara doing planning. Having time to know each other is another point why the IPA is strong. The IPA was made over 4 years with Yapa and Kardiya staff working for a long time. This long time was good for visiting to country and planning on country. We think this is important to have long time for planning the IPA because it is the biggest IPA in Australia with lots of different TOs, so we need a long time to talk with all the different TOs and visit their country. Keeping culture strong is key point in our work. Lots of TOs and young people think this is the most important thing for looking after country. Keeping culture strong is really important in a IPA plan of management. Did I pass one? The IPA has strong partnership with more than 10 groups. The partnerships are important for looking after country. In this photo, you can see a Warlpiri ranger and CLC officer, park wildlife officer, and New Haven manager working together to do fire management on the boundary of IPA. Here, rangers are working with Kardiya and TOs doing survey work on country. Here are the rangers working at the school to teach children about ranger work. We would like to thank the people that support the IPA and the Warlpiri Rangers. Thank you for listening. We would be happy to answer any questions.
So if anyone's got any questions, you'll just need to wander down the front, please, and use these microphones so they can hear you up on the stage. Thanks.
Tagi Farvar from Iran, president of the ICCA consortium. I have one question. It's all so fascinating, and we've been for quite a while trying to understand better the IPAs. My question is, either generally or in the case of the particular ones presented, to what extent is the governance, like decision-making, in the hands of the local indigenous communities, and to what extent is it in the hands of government representatives or collective decision-making? I'd like to get a better feel for the real role of the communities, the clans, the whatever groupings there is of indigenous peoples in the decision making. What is the weight?
I can only speak from the Southern Tanami IPA perspective, and I inherited what I think, as the coordinator, a really strong governance structure from the two Kardiya, the two non-Indigenous staff that helped to develop the IPA with all of the traditional owners from across the region. So I can't speak for other regions, but I think it helped with the Southern Tanami IPA that both of those non-Indigenous staff were with the development process for the whole time, and also the Australian government allows a long period to develop these IPAs. 4 years is a long time, and I think we need that sort of time to go and discuss the go through the development process with traditional owners and make sure that they're happy for the IPA to be declared. If that answers your question.
The decision is totally in the hands of the traditional owners. Support is provided by the departmental staff to provide them advice and guidance along the way, but they don't make any decisions. And then it comes before the subcommittee, the IPA subcommittee, and we make the recommendations to the department and the minister about funding that particular IPA. And that decision about being an IPA, as Rick has said, may take various lengths of time for the traditional owners to decide whether or not they want an IPA. So it can range from as quickly as 12 months to 5 years or more.
Just to get a bit more clarity, what happens after that? Is this funding indefinite? This support is indefinite? Once the 1 to 5 years is finished, is the IPA still there in the hands of the traditional owners and they take the decisions? And what happens if there's no external support?
The funding continues from the Commonwealth Government at different levels, and that's mainly to make sure that they can implement their plan of management. It does not stop or hinder them from actually seeking funding assistance from philanthropists, environmental NGOs in the way of resources or support for what they are doing on their country. So several IPAs actually look to build partnerships with other organisations, with government organisations, and working in collaboration with the traditional owners. And so, yes, but while they are an IPA, they can continue to get a bucket of some funding from the Commonwealth Government. It is their program, and they stand by to support the IPAs.
Chrissy, this one's for you. You might as well stand there again. Thank you. I have to take this opportunity at an international forum to put publicly a question that you and I have a few conversations about several times. You said that in 2007 there were 24 IPAs, and that grew by 2012 to 56 IPAs, and that you've got 92 projects around the countryside. And I appreciated your question there about what happens in terms of the funding. Is it indefinite? The IPAs are certainly a success story, not just at a national program level. When I say a success story, I'm really celebrating how it impacts locally and how people feel being involved in IPAs, setting out their agreements amongst each other, their plans of management, and getting some programs and funding in place that really supports, site management, pests and weeds, as Preston pointed out, and jobs for people on country. And I know it's difficult because, so much of it is instigated, if you like, started through government funding, being like the seed funding. Can you help give us an idea of the future? Because there are many areas of Australia, and as you know from our country, we really want to be able to go down this path together, and we can't do it from ourselves. We actually need some external seed funding to help get our parties around the table and have those conversations about where we want to go.
Yes, the IPA is maintained at its current funding level. So all of those that are currently receiving funds from the Commonwealth to support their IPA will continue to do so for the next 5 years. And that's just been handed down in the budget. The opportunity then is for, there's a program, as people may know, we're working on country, and some of the IPAs are propped up by that Working on Country program. That's an employment program run by this department, and that allows the rangers to work on country, and we've currently got something like 700 rangers out working on country and implementing plans of management, assisting the IPAs. We're doing the work on country in the IPAs. So at the moment, I can only talk for the next 5 years, where the IPAs will be